Volume 1. Long-term sexual relationships with women. A quote from corporate Machiavelli. If you become powerless, women will leave you to die. End quote. Chapter 1. Female Psychology. Women treat their brothers and sons very well. They treat their boyfriends and husbands like trash. Or at least, their love for their boyfriends or husbands is heavily conditional. Dear men, in the unlikely event you attain spectacular success, i.e., become rich and powerful, all of your former girlfriends are going to start messaging you to catch up. Do not trust them. Enjoy their company, but do not have any expectation that they will be loyal. In my own life, I have gone through girlfriends much the same way I have gone through laptops. I get a new one every 1 to 3 years, with one minor emotional attachment. I value a relationship with one of my male friends a lot more than I value a current or prospective girlfriend. Why? My friends have lasted for life. Women rarely do. By the age of 21, I stopped becoming emotionally invested in my employers, for the same reason I had stopped becoming emotionally invested in my girlfriends. I realized that my relationships with them were temporary, 1 to 3 years, and their love is strictly conditional. If the only things I knew about the men in my contact list were the things their former girlfriends said about them, I would think that every man in my contact list is a monster. Wolves, sheep, and sheepdogs. Women consider men who are sheep to be unattractive. They consider men who are wolves or narcissists to be attractive. But such men are incapable of maintaining a long-term healthy relationship. They consider sheepdogs, confident men who are not narcissistic, high testosterone and psychologically healthy, to be attractive. And such men can maintain long-term healthy relationships. Attractiveness in the female psyche. Your girlfriend is not your confidant. She doesn't want to hear your doubts or your fears. That only scares her, undermines her faith in you, and kills her sexual attraction for you. She wants and needs a strong, resilient leader to guide her and protect her. She is like a child. Women are hypergamous. They consider men to be attractive as sexual partners only if they are more highly ranked than themselves in the macro hierarchy. What men are like is a reflection of what women consider to be sexually attractive. All the men who women consider to be unattractive failed to reproduce and were thus eliminated from the gene pool. Women consider men who have a capacity for violence to be sexually attractive. The motive for homicide, the reason some men commit murder, is greater reproductive success. Most women would rather share a top-tier male with other women, be with a polygamous man, than to have a monopoly on a low-tier male, a monogamous relationship with one man who is weak, has no ambition, and has a small penis. A man who complains women aren't logical enough would not be attracted to a cold, logical woman devoid of feminine warmth. In much the same way, a woman who complains men are too unemotional would not be attracted to a fragile, easily upset, sensitive man devoid of male stoicism. The optimal balances or ratios are thus something akin to the Pareto principle, with your core nature comprising 80% of what you are, whilst the learned positive attributes of the opposite sex that did not come naturally to you comprise the remaining 20%. The highly developed man who can engage compassion will never be as emotionally sensitive as the typical woman, but he is more so than his brothers. A woman without emotion would cease to be a woman, and therefore we would not want her to be completely rational, in much the way a man who is very emotional would become too meek, and therefore cease to be a man. Neither is consumed by the other. They possess a helpful fraction. Men are made more attractive by displaying pride, and least attractive by displaying happiness, whereas women are made most attractive by displaying happiness, and least attractive by displaying pride. Note: for younger women, male shame tends to be more attractive than male happiness. From Happy Guys Finish Last: The Impact of Emotion Expressions on Sexual Attraction by Jessica L. Tracy and Alec T. Beale, University of British Columbia. This research examined the relative sexual attractiveness of individuals showing emotional expressions of happiness, pride, and shame, compared with a neutral control. Across 2 studies using different images and samples ranging broadly in age, a large gender difference emerged in the sexual attractiveness of happy displays. Happiness was the most attractive female emotion expression and one of the least attractive in males. In contrast, pride showed the reverse pattern. It was the most attractive male expression and one of the least attractive in women. Shame displays were relatively attractive in both genders, and among younger adult women viewers, male shame was more attractive than male happiness, and not substantially less than male pride. Effects were largely consistent with evolutionary and socio-cultural norm accounts. Overall, this research provides the first evidence that distinct emotion expressions have divergent effects on sexual attractiveness, which vary by gender, but largely hold across age. Keywords: emotion expression, sexual attraction, pride, shame, happiness. Showing a happy face is considered essential to any friend. Chapter 2: Male Psychology. If a man has a relationship with a woman he was romantically involved with, and it suddenly ends, and he exhibits zero emotional pain in its aftermath, there are 2 possibilities. Either he is psychopathic, unlikely, or he is very good at concealing his pain, very likely. Testosterone causes low agreeableness and low neuroticism. Testosterone is the dominance hormone. Because men have far more testosterone than women, men are on average more dominant than women, more prone to low agreeableness and low neuroticism. In a relationship dynamic between a husband and wife, the dynamic of the male being dominant and the female being submissive is unlikely to be a problem. Chapter 3: Dark Triad Machiavellians. People have 3 faces. One they show to society, second to friends and family, and the third to no one. After changing faces constantly, one does not know who he is anymore. A puppet awaiting a master. Dark Triad Machiavellians. Dark Triad Machiavellians actually experience higher levels of emotional distress than average, but seldom express it or even understand it, giving the impression of inner coldness. In general, they are more tired by emotionally upsetting events and distress. These findings suggest that Machiavellians, albeit often with a rational perspective, tend to develop a persuasive instrumental attitude towards their relationships with others, whom they consider as individuals to be exploited and manipulated. Chapter 4: Traits for Making Money. Agreeableness and income correlate negatively. You heard that correctly. Compassion and wealth correlate negatively. Selfish, cruel, disagreeable people make more money than selfless, compassionate, agreeable people. The relationship is casual. It's not just correlation. Chapter 5. Men versus Women on Trustworthiness. I expect my trustworthy friends to be there for me no matter what. I expect women that I become romantically involved with to abandon me the moment my status in the macro-dominance hierarchy falls below the 80th percentile. Who do you think I should value more? Trustworthy friends are rare. Women are common. Never prioritize a woman over a trustworthy friend. A trustworthy friend will be there to help you should you become powerless. If you become powerless, women will leave you to die. A quote from Illimitable Man. Look for good friends. Many men waste their life looking for the right woman, but whilst good friends can last a lifetime, women rarely do. End quote. Chapter 6. Ending relationships with women. If it is brazenly obvious that a romantic relationship is not going to work, end it, immediately and definitively. Time is valuable, don't waste it. Do not allow sentimentality to drive you to continue investing in an asset that is doomed. If you want to get rid of her, get her to leave you. This way, you leaving her does not cause her to feel anger or hatred towards you and seek revenge. See women throwing false accusations of crimes at their ex-boyfriends because they're angry they got dumped. As a man, there is an almost 100% chance that during your lifetime you will want to end your relationship with a woman you are romantically involved with. When you do this, you have two goals. Number 1, end the relationship. And number 2, do not cause her to hate you and seek revenge. You want to minimize the risk of blowback. Avoid blowback. The best way to do this is simple. Appear to be so weak and pathetic that she leaves you. She will leave you, end the relationship goal achieved, and she may even feel sorry for you, or at least she will not actively hate you. Avoid blowback goal achieved. If you want to keep your girlfriend, and you sense she is about to leave you, you will get this sensation about 7 seconds before she does. Immediately, say our relationship is over. Goodbye. Sound cold and detached, as if you just said I like red wine better than white. If you want to end a romantic relationship, always get her to leave you. Just act like soy for 60 seconds and she will leave you. If you dump her, it could make her so angry that she seeks revenge by damaging your reputation. I have witnessed this many times. If you are ending a relationship with someone and you want to break their heart, don't display anger. Display cold detachment. Appear completely calm, as if they don't matter at all. If you have a girlfriend who you want to keep for the long term, and you sense she is about to leave you, leave her first. When you tell her it's time for our relationship to end, sound ice cold and detached. This way, she feels heartbreak and regrets when hit with your absence, which makes her want to reignite her relationship with you. Had you allowed her to leave you, it's much less likely she would feel heartbreak when hit with your absence. Dear men, if a woman you are romantically involved with ever tells you, "I cannot live without you," that is a lie. Mostly she is lying to herself. 7 weeks after your relationship with her ends, she will be perfectly fine. Remember those exes who during the breakup swore they couldn't live without you and pleaded that you stay? Today they're enjoying new relationships and breathing perfectly fine. Isn't it a mystery? After you end a relationship with a woman, you will perceive her as being more valuable than you did when you were with her. Why? Scarcity. As soon as your relationship with her is over, you cannot have her anymore, regardless of whether you left her or she left you. So you view her as being more scarce than you did back when you were with her. So you view her as being more valuable. Chapter 7. Dating Advice for Women. Legitimate dating advice for women. Be good-looking. Get commitment from him, i.e., get him to sign a marriage contract. Chapter 8. Dating Advice for Men. Being a man who is romantically successful with women is not complicated. It is very simple. There is a reliable formula. Good-looking like myself. High status. Low neuroticism. The pick-up artist and dating advice industry pretends it is complicated so they can sell products. I troll my girlfriends for 2 reasons. 1. It is fun. And 2. It ensures they stay in love with me. From a young age, I instinctively understood it was important to troll girls to make them fall in love with me. Because since birth, I witnessed my father troll my mother. Relationship experts told us that women want equality in their romantic relationships. This was a lie. Women do not find men who are their equals to be attractive. Hypergamy causes women to find men who are their superiors attractive. I persuaded my sister to be with the man who is now her husband by telling her, "Don't go near him, he's too dangerous." Making him forbidden made him seem more attractive. I then grudgingly gave my approval of her marrying him. Garbage dating advice. Just be yourself. Legitimate dating advice for men. Be good-looking, or if you can, be very good-looking like myself. Be rich and powerful, high status in the macro hierarchy. Be low neuroticism, confident, with a high stress tolerance. Be the best option. I am not encouraging men to be unfaithful to their wives or girlfriends when I say the following. I am simply describing reality. Most women will forgive their boyfriend or husband for being unfaithful to them, so long as she perceives he is her best mate option. Chapter 9. Time Management with Friends. I have not talked to my best friend in 3 weeks. Why? Because he is busy building a business. Contrary to popular belief, successful people do not spend 3 hours a day sitting around talking to their friends about the meaning of life. They are busy. Successful men tend to have a very small number of close friends who they speak with sporadically, once every few weeks or months for a few hours at a time. They are not spending 8 hours a day in coffee shops discussing the meaning of life. I had very few friends, all of whom were boys, who were very intelligent and very ambitious. Over the decades, I've spoken to each of them once a month for 1 to 2 hours at a time about what's currently going on in their lives. They are all extremely successful. Don't mistake network with a friend circle. I bet corporate Machiavelli has a huge network, but a small friend circle. Those on higher missions could not afford the luxury of wasting time with 20 to 30 friends gossiping. Also, with a high IQ, not many people understand you, The conversations with friends are packed with information, not a bunch of fluff that contains zero concrete substance. It is incredibly rare to encounter an intelligent person who can make a conversation last longer than 2 hours without adding in useless fluff. If you are going to be successful, you are going to be busy. Talking to your friends once a month for 1 to 2 hours is plenty. Note: if you need to buy friends, they aren't your friends. They are actually mercenaries, and mercenaries can be useful. Chapter 10. Testing Women. If you are going to become romantically entangled with a woman, pay very close attention to what she says about her former boyfriends. That's what she is going to be saying about you in the not-too-distant future, unless you spend the rest of your life with her in marriage. When a woman who both you and your wife or girlfriend know chooses to divorce her husband, take note of how your wife or girlfriend reacts. Does she suggest the two of them should do what they can to repair their marriage? Or does she immediately support divorce? If she is supportive of her friends who choose to divorce their husbands without cause, then that is a red flag. Chapter 11. Identifying red flags within women. A good relationship is effortless. A bad relationship is endless work. This is true of business relationships, romantic relationships, and friendships. You should not be able to afford to spend 20+ hours a week dealing with drama that women manufacture out of nothing. Your time to spend on dating will be very limited, and as such, you will subconsciously ensure it is only spent on high-quality women. Toxic femininity. Gossiping about people you don't like to smear them. Passive aggressiveness. Never taking responsibility. Manipulating men to commit violence on your behalf. Using men for money. Crying on command to get what you want. Playing the victim. Friend-zoning men they know fancy them to exploit them. False corporate sexual harassment claims. Pretending to be raped to cover up infidelity. Lying about being on birth control to get pregnant without consent. And not letting children see their father. Chapter 12. Dating advice for women. Do these 2 things, and you will be better than 90% of women. Be good-looking. Do not be narcissistic, arrogant, or entitled. More dating advice for women. Whenever a woman asks me for dating advice, my answer is always the same. Dramatically lower your standards. Women overestimate their value in the dating market. They overestimate the quality of the man they will be able to get commitment from. Both men and women are aware, at least subconsciously, that having a high income will boost a man's value in the dating market, but it will not boost a woman's. It is politically correct to point out that wealth is Pareto distributed. It is politically incorrect to point out that in the heterosexual dating market, men's romantic success is Pareto distributed. Ladies, the number 1 reason men leave their girlfriends is that they make the conscious calculation that this woman is more annoying than she is worth. This is particularly true of successful men. Chapter 13. Female expectations. Women tend to drastically overestimate their value and bargaining power in the dating market. A woman at the 50th percentile thinks she can get commitment from a man at the 90th percentile. Men tend to have more realistic expectations regarding what they will be able to get in the dating market. A man at the 50th percentile expects he will end up with a woman around the 50th percentile. Most men are, by definition, not elite high-value men. Most women are not exceptionally beautiful and chaste, nor of the correct temperament and genetics to be marriageable for an elite man. A woman who has had sex with top-tier men thinks she is deserving of a top-tier man for marriage and refuses to lower her standards, not realizing that she never met those men's standards for marriage to begin with, hence why they're gone. Women only consider men in the top 20% of physical attractiveness to actually be attractive or sexually arousing. So it's something of an inevitability that most women will not be able to get an offer of marriage from such a man, since such men are in a minority. Chapter 14. Aesthetics. Looks. Everyone understands that to some degree, physical attractiveness drives success or failure in the dating market. Most people drastically underappreciate the degree to which physical attractiveness matters for success or failure in the dating market. Humans are deeply superficial. If you are ugly as shit, there is almost no advice I can give you that will compensate for this. Whether you are male or female, your success or failure in the dating market is overwhelmingly determined by physical attractiveness. Humans are deeply superficial. Don't hate me. Hate reality. If you are physically unattractive, you are basically doomed in the modern dating market. This is not a complaint. I am good-looking. I am very good-looking. It is a statement about reality. If you are a man who is ugly, plastic surgery is a completely reasonable option.
I am a man who is physically unattractive. How can I succeed in the modern dating market?
You cannot. You are doomed. That's the bad news. The good news, there is a solution. Become good-looking like me. Your physical attractiveness is very changeable. All ugly men are unsuccessful in the dating market. In my entire life, I have encountered exactly 0 exceptions to this. Most ugly men have not done nearly all they can do to improve their looks. Most of them could become good-looking, or at least average-looking. Something neurotypical women and narcissistic men have in common is that they have a good fashion sense. If you need someone to advise you on updating your wardrobe, get a neurotypical woman or a narcissistic man to help you. Do not take fashion advice from autistic men. Most people drastically underestimate the degree to which physical attractiveness drives success or failure in the dating market. When it comes to the dating market, physical attractiveness is not just one of many factors. It is by far the single most important factor. People want to believe that physical attractiveness is a factor of minor importance. In reality, it is a factor of overwhelming importance for the dating market and also for the job market and economic success. If you are good-looking, or very good-looking like myself, it is going to be way easier to succeed in the dating market. It is also going to be way easier to succeed in job interviews and office politics. Good-looking people are more likely to be hired and promoted than ugly people. Things that most people drastically underestimate. The degree to which biochemistry and endocrinology determines psychology and behavior. The degree to which physical attractiveness determines success or failure in the dating market. Chapter 15. The Dating Market. The dating market, like so many markets, needs regulation. When it's laissez-faire, the majority of people lose out, whilst a few winners get more than their fill. And society stops working properly when the majority of people are forever single or divorced. Within the dating market of unmarried men and women, you will find that male romantic success is Pareto distributed. Red-pill dating market principles applied to business. Buyers are like females. Sellers are like males. Buyers are hypergamous. Sellers are polygamous. The top 20% of sellers dominate the market, taking 80% of the buyers. Wealth is not the only thing that has become more unequal. Romance has as well. How so? In 1970, America was a monogamous society, relatively speaking. Most adults were married, and marriages consisted of one man and one woman. 2020 America is a pseudo-polygamous society. Managing a romantic relationship with a woman effectively is rather simple. It is not that complicated, and if you think it's complicated, you're doing it wrong. Romance is checkers, not 3D chess. Managing an international merger involving 4 private equity firms is 3D chess. Chapter 16. Self-censoring. If you say things that are politically incorrect outside of the current Overton window, in front of close friends or family members, they may publicize the fact that you said such things, which will cause you to suffer. If you say politically incorrect things in front of your friends and family members, the day may come when they will harm you for it. When you have conflict with your family and friends, keep those conflicts private. Making them public makes both of you look like fools. Volume 2. Male Friendships. Chapter 1. Choosing Male Friends. If you need to buy friends, they aren't your friend. Just a temporary leech on the financials of the country. Self-refucking Spect is a country that shouldn't require bribery for friendship. Same as personal relations. Verify the loyalty of your friends. Manufacture a crisis. See how they react. Are they willing to help? Or is their loyalty worthless? When you succeed, your friends will be happy for you. Your fake friends will envy and hate you. When you fail, your friends will do everything in your power to help you. Your fake friends will abandon you. If your loyalty to me is conditional on me being powerful, or more euphemistically, successful, you are a mercenary. That is acceptable. I can work with mercenaries. But don't think I will do for you what I do for my friends. I am willing to die for one of my friends. If you are a mercenary, I will pay you. That is all. Personality types of men for the sake of male friendships. High extroversion plus low agreeableness. Enjoys social interaction for the sake of the stimulation, dopamine hit, but doesn't have a strong desire for intimate friendships, an oxytocin hit. Low extroversion plus high agreeableness. Doesn't desire social interaction for the sake of stimulation, a dopamine hit. Does desire to have close, intimate friendships, oxytocin hit. What friendship reveals about you? Seeing as you wouldn't have friends you can't communicate with or relate to, that means most of the people you know will be within a standard deviation of your own intelligence. Your friends and associates are thus a non-representative sample due to the selection bias of your own IQ. Chapter 2. Close male friendships. Real friends. If you have 5 real friends, you are one of the luckiest people on the planet. You have, at most, 5 real friends. To have 5 real friends would be a miracle. If you have 5 real friends, you are one of the luckiest people on the planet. 1 to 2 is far more realistic. Chapter 3. The Dark Side of Male Friendships. A quote from Balthazar Gracian. Few are the friends of a man. Mostly are merely the friends of his present circumstances and power. When his power disappears, most of his friends will disappear soon after. End quote. After you beat your enemies, integrate them into your army. Old enemies make good soldiers. Old friends make the worst enemies. The more friends you think you have, the more likely it is that you have 0 real friends. Even your best friends probably think about you for 10 seconds a day on average. Most people cannot face truths like this. Heuristic. If they report having a high number of friends, they probably have 0 real friends. Chapter 4. Betrayal in Male Friendships. Choose your friends wisely. Betrayal is far more dangerous than attack. A quote from Andrew Tate. Only your friends can betray you. Your enemies can't. They can only attack you. Attacks can be prepared for. Treachery is so dangerous in that it strikes at your absolute weakness while you're completely unprepared. Your friends are your weakness. Choose wisely. Throughout history, more kings were killed by their treacherous friends and backstabbing brothers than they were by their enemies. And you're still out here rolling with untested friends. Be aware. The second you have something they want, betrayal. End quote. You don't take out the opposition by declaring war. You take them out by becoming best friends. This is the 21st century. Chapter 5. The Bright Side of Friendships. I am willing to engage in self-sacrifice for the sake of my family and friends, because I know that should I end up powerless, they will do what they can to help me. Society would do no such thing for me. Besides your closest family and friends, it's every man for himself in this world. I would rather die than betray one of my friends. I've only got 4. If you are lucky, you will have friends who will go down with the ship. You must drag them to the lifeboat and handcuff them to it. Even if you get smarter and older, you find that many of your friends were really just acquaintances, and you're lucky to have a handful of real friends. A quote from Illimitable Man. Look for good friends. Many men waste their life looking for the right woman, but whilst good friends can last a lifetime, women rarely do. End quote. Chapter 6. Ending Friendships with Men. In our modern environment, America 1980 to 2025, most friendships and romantic relationships are temporary alliances of convenience. Heartbreak results from people being seduced by the delusion that such bonds last for life, when in truth they are temporary. It is unwise to end a friendship over one mistake. Men who can be trusted as friends are rare, and as such they are valuable. The probability that you will never make a mistake yourself is 0. Never end a friendship over mistakes that indicate incompetence rather than malice or untrustworthiness. Everyone is incompetent some of the time. Trustworthy people are rare, and a trustworthy person alone, with no other information about them, makes them valuable. Modern America has been an environment where everything is temporary, constantly changing. Employment is temporary. Housing is temporary. Romantic relationships are temporary. Friendships are temporary. Romantic relationships and friendships are treated as temporary alliances of convenience rather than as sacred bonds for life. Chapter 7. Ruthless Social Capitalist. In terms of execution, Machiavellian executor, I am at the 80th percentile of ability. I am better than most people at charming, persuading, deceiving, and intimidating individuals and groups in real time, but I am not the best on the planet. For most of my life I was risk-averse, and with good reason. I had a lot to lose. Enjoyable work, a high income, beautiful girlfriends. What sane man would risk losing these things? I feel zero in-group preference on the basis of race, ethnicity, or nationality. My tribe is based on personal loyalty, family and friends, not skin color or the happenstance of what country you were born in. I am a socialist when dealing with my family members and close friends, and a ruthless capitalist with everyone else. Chapter 8. Getting Advice. Ignore the advice of your elders. Why? Because most people stop updating their mental model of what reality looks like around the age of 30. Chapter 9. Relationships for Business. Very often, there is a business dealing or relationship that would benefit you, which involves you associating with a person you know is untrustworthy. It is possible to have mutually beneficial business dealings and relationships with people you do not trust. You can keep them around and have a good relationship with them. Just don't include them in operations related to critical missions. You do not need to trust someone to have a relationship with them that you and they benefit from. Volume 3. Marriage, Divorce, and Raising a Family. Chapter 1. Relationships with Women. Most relationship issues, both professional and personal, are really management issues resulting from inadequate pre-selection and poor vetting. The Achilles heel in newer relationships is our propensity to fall in love with the idea of who we want someone to be. We minimize their flaws, exaggerate their strengths, and romanticize their persona, which gives us the pretense that they're the one. Eyes wide shut. Seduction and romantic relationships are not complicated. They are the most simple venue for manipulation of human psychology available. Just read Illimitable Man's essays. That's it. You don't need any information beyond that. It is difficult to justify to oneself that they should become intensely emotionally attached, when one knows very well that odds are this relationship is temporary, and in 1 to 3 years, it will be gone. By the time you hit girlfriend number 4, you will have already been through relationships with 3 women before her. By that point, you will subconsciously, or in my case consciously, have the expectation that your relationship with her will end at some point. It is a temporary alliance of convenience, not a lifelong bond. James Bond. There are many men who can succeed in business, politics, and war, who cannot manage a romantic relationship with a woman without making catastrophical tactical mistakes. Jeff Bezos is not very much of an outlier in this regard. I know dozens of multimillionaires who successfully created and managed very complicated and very successful businesses, but who can't manage their marriage. It's ludicrous, but it's true. Chapter 2. Value Exchange of Marriage. Things we require women to do for men. Cook and clean, basic house tasks. Remain a virgin and refuse all dick until marriage. Things we require men to do for women. Provide for women financially. Protect them. Risk death in combat. The requirements placed on men are 100 times more difficult. Being a husband who is required to make enough money to support an entire family is far more difficult than being a stay-at-home mother who tends to the children and cooks and cleans. I could cook, clean, and remain a virgin until marriage with very little effort while half asleep. I could not make enough money to provide for both myself and a wife and succeed in combat with very little effort while half asleep. Chapter 3. The Financial Side of Marriage. Marriage for money. They tell young women, "Find a nice boy, marry him, become a stay-at-home mother." Only 10% of young men will make enough money to support a stay-at-home mother who contributes zero income. Most young women will not be able to get a marriage offer from one of these young men. Men have to work for a living. Ugly women have to work for a living. Good-looking women do not have to work for a living. A good-looking woman can marry an upper-class or rich man and live off his money. Men cannot do this. Ugly women usually cannot do this. Unless you're a Chad like myself, famous or a sociopath, you won't have multiple women in love with you at the same time. Unless you're a ridiculously beautiful and sweet woman, you won't ever marry an elite, high-value man. Hypergamy and polygamy, whilst complementary, are not sustainable. Being a stay-at-home mother is an option only available to young women who marry a man in the top 10% of the income distribution. Hint: most young women won't be able to do this. The man must be able to generate income. If a woman is incompetent at making money, there are plenty of men who will be willing to marry her and provide for her financially. The reverse is not true. If a man is incompetent at making money, there are no women who will be willing to marry him and provide for him financially. Unless you're ridiculously good-looking with a massive cock like myself. Women have to choose between their career and their family. Women have a choice. Men have no such choice. If a man wants to have a family, he has to have a successful career, make enough money to provide for children. Paying men more money than women for the same jobs is a good policy. Why? It helps men to appeal to female hypergamy. It makes most women consider most men attractive, or at least a higher percentage of men to be attractive, which leads to a higher number of happy marriages. I could cook, clean, and remain a virgin until marriage, with little to no effort. Making enough money to support an entire family and succeeding in combat requires immense effort, and also comes with a risk of death in combat. Chapter 4. Advice for Women. Men to marry. If you are a good-looking woman, your best shot at getting rich is this. Find a rich man and seduce him into marrying you. Dear women, if your goal is to be financially set for life by finding a rich man to marry, what follows is the perfect target. Male of age 30 to 40. Upper class, rich. Intelligent. Autistic. Socially awkward nerd. Unsuccessful romantically most of his life, so he will be desperate. If you are a young woman who is attractive, I suggest you find a rich man to marry and live off his money. This will make your life 10 times easier. There are men like myself who have massive cocks and are ridiculously good-looking, who can marry a rich woman and live off her money. But such instances are incredibly rare. Women overestimate the quality of men they will marry. A woman at the 50th percentile of beauty thinks she will be able to marry a man at the 90th percentile of handsomeness and wealth. But this is not reality. Many women, perhaps a majority, marry a man who they don't consider physically attractive in order to get security, in other words, access to his financial resources. If you are a good-looking woman, you can have a very easy life. Find a rich man to marry. Live off his wealth. That's it. Set for life. Can be done by age 21. Dear Western women, if you meet a man with high testosterone levels who is not narcissistic and not psychopathic, marry him. You are not going to find better than that. I would never suggest in today's times that women get married straight out of high school with no job and no money. I would. Marry a wealthy man and live off his money. The divorce laws are rigged in your favor, so alimony plus child support has you set for life. My own mother is an exception. She chose to marry my father when he had nothing and was nothing. Via some hard work and luck and cunning, he managed to transcend the hierarchy, go from rags to riches. Do not assume that the woman you are with is an exception. If you are a man who ranks lower on agreeableness than the average person, but you still have a soul, you have a sense of honor and a capacity for compassion, that is the ideal. You are the type of man I want my sister to marry. Chapter 5. Advice for Women. Men to avoid. Do not make a narcissistic man your business partner. Do not marry a narcissistic man. Do either of these things, and it may irreversibly damage your life. I've witnessed both many times. If you are a Western woman and you encounter a man with high testosterone levels who is not narcissistic and not psychopathic, marry him. You will not find better than that. Testing men. If a man is masculine, high testosterone, has a capacity for violence, and you are trying to decipher whether it's positive or negative masculinity, simply ask yourself, would I want this type of man to marry my sister or daughter? If your sister or daughter is engaged to marry a man, hire an extremely attractive woman to attempt to seduce him. See if he falters. His loyalty must be tested too. Chapter 6. Advice for Men. Women to avoid. Financial literacy. Don't marry a woman who is financially illiterate. After you die, husbands tend to die first, unfortunately, she is going to be managing your money. If she doesn't know the difference between a stock, bond, currency, and cryptocurrency, do not marry her. Look at your girlfriend. Would you trust her to manage your money? No? Then don't marry her. Why? Because if you marry her, almost certainly you, the husband, will die first, and she is going to be left managing your money. Men. A virtuous wife is one who has some understanding of finance. Do not marry a woman who has zero understanding of financial management. Men. Before marrying a woman, ask her, is hyperinflation good or bad for lenders and for borrowers, and why? This is an easy financial question. If she cannot answer this, don't marry her. But corporate Machiavelli, that disqualifies 99% of American women. I know. Just go east. Values. I would rather marry a right-wing Christian woman than a left-wing feminist woman. You don't need to know how many previous partners she's had. You just need to know if it's too many, so you should not marry her. Social media. If she has a not anonymous social media account with a large following, she is not marriage material. Managing a romantic relationship with a woman is hard enough without her ego constantly being inflated by attention. Note: attention-seeking behavior correlates with narcissism. Narcissism correlates with sexual infidelity. Do not marry a narcissistic person. Do not marry an attention-seeking person. Chapter 7. Advice for Men. Women to marry. You must be very careful in choosing which woman to marry. There are few decisions that can irreversibly change the course of your life. This is one of them. There is no surefire way to guarantee the woman you marry will be a good wife, but there are certain metrics to screen for that shift the odds in your favor. History. The actionable information is this. If a potential bride was raised fatherless or has had a very bad relationship with her father, take that as a bad sign. If she was raised with her father around and has a relationship with him that is at least decent, take that as a good sign. To minimize the probability of a divorce, marry a woman who has had as few partners as possible before you, ideally 0. Conscientiousness. A woman who ranks high on conscientiousness is likely to be a good wife, while a woman who ranks low on conscientiousness is likely to be a bad wife. Don't marry a lazy woman. Such women make annoying wives and abysmal mothers. Intelligence. Marry a high IQ woman, not a low IQ woman. Why? This maximizes the probability of your children getting the genetics to have high IQs. IQ is the single best predictor of long-term life success. Give your children the best shot at life possible. Not annoying. If I was selecting a woman for my younger brother to marry, the number one trait I would screen for is not annoying. His life is going to be hard. Everyone's is. I don't want it to be any harder than it has to be. High agreeableness, low neuroticism. The two indispensable traits of a good woman. The kind of woman a man would want to marry. High conscientiousness, high agreeableness, hard-working and kind. A man lives a fulfilled life by making something of himself. A woman lives a fulfilled life by marrying such a man and conceiving children with him. If you find a very feminine woman, high voice, high estrogen, loves babies, high agreeableness, who is someone low on neuroticism, marry her. You will never find better than that. Consider abroad. Are you aware that in America and every Western country, there is a shortage of good wife material? Most young women are degenerates. They have many previous sexual partners. Western men, get a non-Western woman. Are they perfect? No. However, they are significantly better than Western women on average. Managing a romantic relationship with a woman is hard. If she has been brainwashed by feminism, a Western phenomenon, it will be insanely hard. 1950 America. If you are a man and you want to marry a virgin, you can pick a single woman at random. 2020 America. If you are a man and you want to marry a virgin, become a multimillionaire, travel to other countries, meet with upper-class women there, and choose one carefully. Not a gold digger. A servant is tested when sent on an important mission. Family in times of distress. A friend at the hour of need. and a wife at the loss of one's wealth. Dear Western man, if you meet a woman who is decent looking, is satisfied economically, so long as you provide the basic necessities of life, and doesn't require you to act like Stalin to enforce some semblance of order, marry her. You are not going to find better than that. Chapter 8. Being an attractive husband and raising a family. Imagine the kind of man you want your daughter to marry. Be him. If my sister were to marry a man who is confident and disagreeable, I would be fine with that. If my sister were to marry a man who is narcissistic, I would be horrified. Chapter 9. Divorce. Divorce and marriage. Marriage got a lot worse in America from 1970 to 2020. Back in 1970, the divorce rate was minuscule, below 1%. From 1971 to 2020, the divorce rate has been 50%, basically a coin toss. Marriage went from being a safe bet to being an incredibly dangerous bet, a coin toss. Men fuck women they wouldn't marry.
Dirty bitch.
You think that marriage is a good idea for young men, in spite of the fact that the divorce rate is over 50%, and divorce courts routinely burn men alive financially. Signing a marriage is suicidally foolish for men. 50% chance of getting financially burned alive in divorce court in America. From 1970 to 2020, America has been a society where a woman can divorce her husband without cause and throw him out of his own house and take 50% of his future income via alimony and child support. Fuck this. This is insanity. No wonder young men are scared to sign marriage contracts. If you are a man in a Western country, do not sign a marriage contract. There is zero upside reward in doing so, and immense downside risk in doing so. If you are a woman in a Western country, do sign a marriage contract. There is immense upside reward in doing so, and zero downside risk. Telling young men to marry them is like telling young men to inject heroin into their dicks that has been secretly laced with fentanyl. In our modern environment, a man has nothing to gain and everything to lose by getting married. 50% chance the marriage goes well, in which case the man gains nothing. 50% chance of divorce, in which case he loses half of his wealth via alimony and child support. 50% chance the marriage goes well, in which case she gets a reasonably happy life. 50% chance of divorce, in which case she can spend the rest of her life living off her ex-husband's money through alimony and child support. In America from 1970 to 2020, 50% of men who got married ended up having their lives wrecked because of it. Divorce courts, alimony, child support. And in 2020, American men are still signing marriage contracts. Do they never fucking learn? Chapter 10. Weddings. Wedding. Observation. The bigger the wedding, the unhealthier the marriage. Some curious cat can confirm this with the data. Observation. Larger weddings correlate with a higher probability of divorce. I sense this is because a desire to have a larger wedding correlates with narcissism and egotism, which does not bode well for a long and healthy marriage. Basic bitches care more about the wedding than they do the marriage itself. If she won't marry you without having a huge wedding, she's not a keeper. A woman wanting to marry you suggests she desires long-term commitment. That's not a bad thing. But a woman wanting a large wedding suggests egotism and a desire to be showered in attention and validation. Narcissistic traits. That is a bad thing. Chapter 11. Divorce and the danger to society. Late-stage Rome was a place where government constantly increased the money supply. There was inflation. The gap between rich and poor constantly got bigger. The rich got richer, the poor got poorer. Young men refused to marry due to high divorce rates. Does any of this sound familiar? Chapter 12. Career Women. Feminism, second and third wave, is a fertility-negative ideology. Why? Because it tells young women,
go to university, then work as a corporate or government white-collar employee. Delay marriage and children until after 25.
It causes women to have fewer children. The problem is, women's fertility takes a severe hit around 30, and another hit around 35. Delaying marriage and childbearing to over 30 is cutting it close, to say the least. Most women end up becoming infertile before having any children at all. Paradoxically, a wife attaining spectacular career success is not an asset for a marriage. It's a liability. Chapter 13. Purpose of marriage. The purpose of marriage is not to make women happy or to make men happy. The purpose of marriage is to ensure that every child is born into a situation where they will have easy access to their mother and father. Sounds obvious, yet every man in America from 1970 to 2020 who signed a marriage contract did this. In America from 1970 to 2020, we saw women give freedom to choose their sexual partners. The result? Female self-destruction. Women with multiple partners who destroyed their capacity to pair bond, and with it, their future prospects of a happy marriage. Every marriage is arranged. The only question is who is arranging it. When interests and incentives align, managing a relationship is effortless. When interests and incentives do not align, managing a relationship is an endless war. Chapter 14. Marriage Advice for Men. My advice regarding marriage? Number 1. Do not sign a marriage contract if you are in America. You would be signing up for a 50% chance of divorce and losing half of all your future income through alimony and child support. I have zero experience with marriage. Yet my advice on it is better than what 99% of married men in America will give you. If you are unfaithful to your wife, do not tell her. Regret it. Don't do it again. Never mention it. You cannot afford to destroy your marriage because you felt the need to get it off your chest. Look at what her relationship with her brother is like. The way she deals with him is the way she will deal with you. Exceptions apply, but this is a powerful heuristic. Refer to your girlfriend or wife as woman, and your relationship will run much more smoothly. Volume 4. Family Relationships. Chapter 1. Western versus Eastern Family Structures. American Family Structures. Age 18. Child leaves their parents' home forever. If they ever return to live with their parents, they are considered a worthless loser who deserves death. Age 18 to 29. Child lives with roommates, strangers, and gets married at some point. Indian Family Structures. Age 18 to 22. Child leaves parents' home to go to university to get a degree. Age 22 onwards, child returns to live in their parents' home, forever. Get a job, get married. brings their spouse to live with them in their parents' home. Divorce is rare because it is socially unacceptable. Children or grandchildren are born and live with their parents and grandparents, all in one house. No lies. Having witnessed both, I prefer Indian family structures over American family structures. Why? On my Indian side of the family, children live in their parents' house literally forever, age 18 to death. When their parents die, they inherit the house. All the money they save by not paying rent is used to acquire rental properties, to extract rent revenues from white Americans. Due to the immense social pressure to stay married, divorce is more rare. Infidelity is more rare. There's intense shaming of infidelity. The money saved by living with one's parents can be used to acquire rental properties, and then extract rent from Americans to acquire more rental properties. When I hit age 22, my white American relatives pressured me to not move back to my parents' home, since doing so meant I was a loser who deserved death. But my Indian relatives pressured me to move back to my parents' home, since they consider it normal. The nuclear family, husband and wife and children, is not normal. It was normal in Western countries from 1946 to 79, a fluke of human history. For 99.9% of human history, people lived with their extended family, grandparents and parents and grandchildren, for their entire life. In white American culture, living in one's parents' house as an adult is considered the ultimate symbol of disgrace and failure. Shaming Americans who live with their parents was a psychological operation to drive up the demand for real estate to further enrich landlords. The most successful psychological operation in the history of the world. The outrageous thing is that working-class white parents take pride in the fact that they do not invest in their children. They take pride in kicking their children out of their home at 18 and not paying for their university education. In Indian culture, living in one's parents' house as an adult is considered normal. Refusal to do this is even considered a bad thing, particularly if you're male. From age 18 to 28, I lived outside my parents' house. From age 28 to 30, I have lived in my parents' house, along with my aunt and uncle, and 2 cousins, and brother and sister, and my sister's husband. Every Indian I talk to is shocked to hear of what I was doing from age 18 to 28. Every white American thinks my life is a disgrace because I've lived in my parents' home from age 28 to 30. Westerners abandon their parents in their old age, which is such a despicable thing to do. 50% divorce rate. 40% of all children are born to unmarried parents. People struggling with education loans and alimony so they cannot afford children. Demanding your children be self-sufficient is a hell of a self-own.
My kids will pay rent when they're 18 or move out. I'm a good parent.
Every wealthy young entrepreneur I know was supported by their parents until they made it. That's the difference of a legacy mindset. Chapter 2. Family Politics. Family politics in a wealthy family. Imagine office politics, where everyone is emotionally invested in one another and you can never leave or restart the game. You cannot simply find a new office job elsewhere. If you think office politics is hard, try family politics, where there's millions of dollars of inheritance and connections on the line. The 2 main life experiences I had that offered insights into my writings were family politics and office politics. These experiences are not unique. We have all had to deal with the politics of a family, and most of us have had to deal with the politics of corporate offices. What is unique is that when going through these experiences, I put in the effort to observe. Chapter 3. Family structure and values. Left wing.
All family structures are equal. There's nothing wrong with being a single mother.
Right wing. All family structures are not equal. Children raised in single-mother households do worse at life, even after adjusting for IQ and family income and wealth. The right wing is correct. The left wing is wrong. Socialism works on a micro scale, but not on a macro scale. Every family is a socialist entity. They have to be. If families operated as capitalist entities, every child would be dead, as would almost every sick person and every old person. Chapter 4. Your family's opinion of your partner. If your family members are thinking that a person you have become romantically involved with is untrustworthy, then it automatically does mean that they are untrustworthy. The reverse is not true. Your family members thinking a person you have become romantically involved with is trustworthy does not automatically mean they are trustworthy. Chapter 5. Raising a family. All I want is a small house, a wife and 2 kids, and enough money to support my family. In 1950 America, you could get this by having an income that is average. In modern America, you have to be top 20%, or even top 1%. To say that we are living in the greatest time in human history is bollocks. No, that time is over. Baby boomers lived in the greatest time in human history, America from 1946 to 79. An average man had a low-stress factory job that paid him enough money to buy a house and support an entire family. Chapter 6. Parental relationships. Parenting practices are not equal. Some parenting practices are actually better than others. Good parenting practices. You do not beat your children. You do not get divorced. You do pay for your child's university education, so they aren't indentured students to student loans. You do let your adult children live in your house to help them save on rent money. Bad parenting practices. You do beat your children. You do get divorced. You do not pay for your child's university education, making indentured students to student loans. You do not let your adult children live in your house. You leave them to die. Parental practices and social class. In America, 1980 to 2020, you will find that upper class and rich whites overwhelmingly engage in good parenting practices, while working class or poor whites overwhelmingly engage in bad parenting practices. To be clear, the reason working class or poor whites overwhelmingly engage in bad parenting practices is not due to their lack of money. Their refusal to pay for their children's university education can be blamed on a lack of money. All of the other bad parenting practices, however, cannot. Parental abuse. Do not judge people harshly for having a bad relationship with their parents. Parents abusing their children is more common than anyone wants to believe. If your parents abused you, eliminate them from your life at the first opportunity. My own relationship with my parents is great. Primarily because my parents are angels, not due to anything positive about me. Parents who abuse their children are not rare, not nearly as rare as you would like to believe, very unfortunately. Having an abusive or negligent parent causes sociopathy, narcissism, not psychopathy. Psychopathy is the result of genetics, not childhood environment. I have noticed that many parents think the fact that they have helped their children, means they have the right to sadistically abuse their children and be harsh with them for no reason. Harshness ranges from pointlessly cruel words to beatings. Such parents are often surprised when they inevitably discover that their children resent them. It's as absurd as a man repeatedly banging one off into a woman without using contraception, and then feeling surprised when he finds out she is pregnant. If you were raised by strict parents, you were probably a very good liar. You had at least 18 years of practice. Being raised by a tyrannical parent is excellent training for the game of power. By the age of 10, you will have learned how to hide your displeasure, fake your contentment and agreement, particularly when interacting with a superior. Manufacture convincing lies fast, with zero time for preparation in advance. Ensure that the lies you tell are consistent over an extended period of time, with no contradiction in what you say over the span of several years. If you see a woman whitewashing the crimes of other women, laughing at the sufferings of men, with lack of empathy towards poor, diseased, and handicapped, that's parenting gone seriously wrong. Gratitude towards your parents. You should be grateful to your parents insofar as they actually helped you. I have encountered many successful men who succeeded in spite of, not because of their parents. If they were to abandon their parents and never speak to them again, I would not blame them. I am eternally grateful to my parents, because they did everything within their power to help me succeed at life. My gratitudes exist with good reason, not because polite society demand that I be grateful simply because two people boned and gave me 46 chromosomes. Chapter 7. Single Parenthood. Boys raised in a single-parent household were more than twice as likely to be incarcerated compared with boys raised in an intact, married home, even after controlling for differences in parental income, education, race, and ethnicity. No. Kids raised by single mums don't do as well. Children raised by their mother and father do better than children raised by single mothers, even after adjusting for other factors such as parental wealth and IQ. Single parenthood and its impact on IQ. The main reason children from single-parent households do worse at life, lower incomes, less wealth, than children from two-parent households is not because of the family structure they were raised in. It is because they have lower IQs. Children from single-parent households tend to have lower IQs than children from two-parent households. Their lower IQs, not the family structure they were raised in, is the main reason for their failure. Lower incomes, less wealth. Volume 5. Sexual Attraction and Seduction. Chapter 1. Difference in flirting and sexual harassment. Competent attempts at seduction carried out by men who are good-looking and charming like myself are called flirting. Incompetent attempts at seduction, carried out by men who are ugly as shit and socially awkward, are called sexual harassment. Remember that. Incompetent attempts at seduction equals sexual harassment. Sexual harassment is against the law, which means it is a crime to be a man who is incompetent at seduction. Competent attempts at seduction executed by good-looking men like myself are called flirting. Incompetent attempts at seduction executed by ugly men are called sexual harassment. I can't repeat this enough. At some point in the 1980s, my mother and father met because my mother was sitting at a bus stop, and my father followed her onto the bus, sat next to her, made conversation, and got her phone number. Today, this would be called sexual harassment. Seduction. If you are male, Women will consider you more sexually attractive if they perceive your status as high. Yes, women will consider a 6-foot-tall, handsome man with no career achievements more sexually attractive than a 5-foot-tall, average-looking man who is autistic and a genius-level software engineer. Women are the human genome's quality control. Chapter 2. Sexual Attraction. Seduction Principle. A woman shows you her best self at the beginning of a relationship. She will put on effort into concealing her negative aspects. As time goes on, you will slowly and steadily discover negative things about her. Voice pitch and sexual attraction. If a woman has a deep voice, she is probably a degenerate. Women with deep voices tend to have a high number of previous sexual partners, because their voice boxes have been stretched by a plethora of cocks. Deeper voice correlates with higher number of sexual partners. In both men and women, a deeper voice correlates with a higher number of previous sexual partners, which would lead listeners of this audiobook to believe that I have had a hell of a lot of fucking sex. And it's true. In both men and women, a higher voice correlates with a lower number of previous sexual partners. A deeper voice is caused by higher testosterone. Higher testosterone also causes a higher sex drive. A higher sex drive causes a person to have more sexual partners. Men with deep voices have higher counts of previous sexual partners than men with high voices. For a rather straightforward reason. Men with deeper voices are more attractive to women, so they are capable of seducing more women. Women with deep voices have higher counts of previous sexual partners than women with high voices because they have higher sex drives. They consent to sex more easily, which leads to them having more partners as the years go by. It means she is more masculinized than you are. Women are not attracted to men less masculine than them. A deeper voice correlates with a higher sex drive in both men and women, so it is more likely that she will be sexually unfaithful to you. Probably with someone like me, somebody better looking, with a deeper voice, and a massive fucking cock. Chapter 3. Personality and sexual partners. If you are narcissistic or sociopathic, there are women who will want to sleep with you. They will disproportionately be lower quality, dumber women. They will have IQs well below 120. This is most of the population. Yes, most people are dumb. And they will have multiple previous sexual partners. Extroverted women generally have more sexual partners than introverted women. When you hear a guy say, "Oh, back in university, my wife was the life of the party," that is not a good thing. Inside every woman lay dark and depraved sexual desires. In some women, they lie dormant, waiting to be activated. Others are aware of this nature, but deny it. This is the female shadow. The female shadow is a filthy, dirty whore. She exists in all women and cannot be repressed out of existence. A woman who suppresses her shadow denies her own sexuality. Traditional cultures promote this, often causing great psychological harm. Liberal cultures, on the other hand, promote shadow possession, the free wanton indulgence of promiscuity. This too causes great harm. A woman with an integrated shadow is sexual without being slutty, discerning without being bitter. A man with an integrated shadow possesses the capacity for destruction, but channels that towards protection and growth, rather than predation. Both leverage the dark for the light. Religion effectively identifies a vector of shadow possession as an issue in women, promiscuity, and counteracts that by employing the opposite: suppression of sexuality and desexualization. But that doesn't stop a woman from being a sexual being. It just causes her unnecessary shame. All human beings have a sexuality that serves as part of their shadow. It's simply more pronounced in women, and makes up a larger part of their shadow, as women are more sexual and sensual than men. Teaching them to feel shame for simply possessing sexuality is deeply damaging. Psychological attraction. Men engage in violence because they subconsciously understand that doing so can win them status. Men want status because it makes them sexually attractive. Caveat: engaging in violence only wins a person status if it is carried out against the right target. Observation: in women, vanity correlates with high previous sexual partner count. If she enjoys spending a lot of money on vanity items, clothing and jewelry, she's probably had quite a few dicks. Data tells us that as a woman acquires more sexual partners, her pair bonding capacity diminishes. I am convinced that the same is true of men, though I don't have data to back it up, it's just a hunch. Men are attracted to women of innocence, both psychologically and sexually innocent. Women are attracted to men of experience, both psychologically and sexually experienced. If you do get married, pick a woman with few, ideally 0 previous sexual partners. This maximizes her pair bonding capacity and minimizes the odds of divorce. Women find narcissistic men to be sexually attractive. Women find autistic men to be unattractive, or at least awkward. I have never encountered an autistic man who was good at seducing women. I have never encountered a narcissistic man who was bad at seducing women. Girls are sent off to university around age 18. While there, many rack up a high number of sexual partners, and thereby lose their capacity to pair bond. This is very bad for their long-term happiness. Chapter 4. Psychological Laws on Female Mindset and Attraction. Hypergamy, the default female mindset. Women are attracted to men more dominant than they are, so this indeed is a good thing. It enhances the wife's attraction to her husband. In a relationship between a father and daughter, the dynamic of the male being dominant and the female being submissive is unlikely to be a problem. The child is supposed to be the subordinate, and the parent is supposed to be the superior. In a relationship between mother and son, the dynamic of the male being dominant and the female being submissive is very likely to be problematic. Quote-unquote relationship experts, who, without a hint of irony, tell husbands it is a good idea to allow their wives to sleep with other men, they also say women want a romantic partner who is an equal partner. This is a fucking lie. In countries like Sweden, high-income women tend to reject egalitarian relationships in favor of seeking out even more high-income husbands. Not very shocking. Women want a romantic partner who is a superior, which is known as hypergamy. Why? Because when her status in the macro hierarchy rises, it increases the probability that she will attain status higher than her husband's, thereby causing her attraction to her husband to die because he no longer appeals to her hypergamy. Light switch effect. Light switch effect equals the old man is unattractive when the switch is turned off. Hypergamy equals the new man is very attractive. Warbride's effect equals light switch to remove attraction to the old man. Hypergamy fuels attraction to the new man. Light switch effect addendum. The degree to which she is in love with you during your relationship is the same degree to which she will hate you after your relationship ends. Why women rewrite the history of relationships towards the end of a relationship. Rewriting of history. It doesn't matter that she was sending you love notes and texts a month ago. She has been unhappy for a long time now. I call this the light switch effect. And it happens when a woman is no longer attracted to you and is moving on, whether or not she cheated. It's not that she's discrediting all the past good in the relationship. She actually believes it never existed. Let me expand on that a little and tie it into what we call Briffault's law. Women use their emotional state to define reality. We already know this. The thought process looks much like this. If true love is permanent and real, and I am not feeling true love for this person, but rather disdain and anger, then I must be feeling this way because of who they are. They make me feel bad, so they cannot be good. And since this person makes me feel bad, I could not have loved them, because I would never love somebody who makes me feel bad. The qualities he exhibits now must have been inherent qualities he has always had. So I must have never truly loved them. The entire relationship must have been a lie. Real true love would be permanent, and this is not permanent, so it was never real true love. And just like that, her emotional state defines a new reality, where nothing was ever good, and everything was based on a lie. Like a light switch goes from on to off, everything that you two had built disappears into the off position, as though it had never existed. Many men at this stage try to bargain. "After all we've been through together, how can you throw this away? We can salvage this." And it's a pointless question. What is she throwing away? Absolutely nothing in her mind. If there was any value in the relationship, she wouldn't feel this way. Therefore, there must not have been value in the relationship. Briffault's law works around this very principle. Briffault's law. The female, not the male, determines all the conditions of the animal family. Where the female can derive no benefit from association with the male, no such association takes place. Corollaries. 1. Past benefit provided by the male does not provide for continued or future association. 2. Any agreement where the male provides a current benefit in return for a promise of future association is null and void as soon as the male has provided the benefit. See Corollary 1. 3. A promise of future benefit has limited influence on current or future association, with the influence inversely proportional to the length of time until the benefit will be given, and directly proportionate to the degree to which the female trusts the male, which is not fucking likely. Specifically, Corollary 1. Past benefit does not provide for continued or future association. The concepts of past benefit and continued association requires a consistent objective reality, where a woman can look at the implicit contracts made in a relationship. "We love each other forever. We'll make it through thick and thin. I'll give you a place to live and provide for you, and you'll remember these sacrifices I made in the future when the chips are down." In her mind, when the chips are actually down, her emotional state will define a new reality, where past benefit doesn't just not count, but rather it simply doesn't exist at all. If her reality included that your sacrifices and love were genuine and real, she wouldn't feel the way she does. She wouldn't feel betrayed. She wouldn't feel unattracted. But she does feel unattracted to you. So the reality where you provided benefit must not have been real. The real reality is that you must have lied, and there was never a true relationship at all. The light switch effect. And make no mistake, even if you're in a good relationship with a good woman, when the chips are down, the light switch always turns off. Chapter 5. Partner count. If a woman has had a high number of dicks, the probability of her divorcing her husband is high. If a woman has had a low number of dicks, the probability of her divorcing her husband is low. Men who are jerks and often exploit women tend to get more pussy. Male relative presence correlates negatively with partner count. Women who are raised with their father present tend to have fewer sexual partners throughout their lifetime than women who are raised fatherless. Girls who are raised fatherless tend to become women who are degenerate. They have a high number of dicks and thereby lose their capacity to pair bond. It also seems to be the case that women raised with at least one older brother present have fewer sexual partners throughout their lifetime than women who have no brothers, though the evidence for this is not concrete. In our evolutionary past, women with no male relatives present were desperate to find a man, a sexual partner, since they'd be in desperate need of a man's resources. Do not rack up a high number of sexual partners and lose your pair bonding capacity, particularly if you are a female. As a man, your capacity to pair bond will diminish as you accrue more female sexual partners, or at least, perhaps pair bonding capacity for males stays the same, but you become more paranoid about it. Another explanation is that when a woman does have male relatives present, they are likely to pressure any sexual partner or boyfriend she has to marry her, or to at least not outright abandon her. Over the course of a lifetime, this would keep her total number of sexual partners down. Notably, partner count mirrors this pattern. Having few sexual partners over the course of a lifetime, case-selected behavior, is typical of high IQ people. Having many sexual partners over the course of a lifetime, R-selected behavior, is typical of low IQ people. Note: sadly, my own observations at university corroborate this narrative that jerks get all the pussy. Indeed, evolutionary psychologist Linda Mealy notes that college men who admit to behavior that legally meets the definition of rape tend to be more popular, have higher status, and have more consensual sex partners than other college men. These big men on campus consider themselves to be so attractive and so high in value that they feel no need to offer any personal attention, concern, or commitment to their potential sex partners. They have already brought something extremely valuable to the bargaining table, so how could anyone possibly say no? Chapter 6: R-selected and K-selected species. R-selected has many sexual partners. Pair bonds weakly or not at all with sexual partners. Relationships with sexual partners are brief or non-existent. Many offspring. Invests very little into offspring. Dumb. R-selected species tend to be dumber, lower IQs. K-selected has few sexual partners. Pair bonds intensely with sexual partners. Relationships with sexual partners last a long time. Few offspring. Works with sexual partners to raise offspring. Mother and father stay together to raise children. Evolution and species-selective behavior in humans. Predator species tend to be K-selected. Predators have to invest heavily into their offspring to teach them how to hunt. Offspring are not born knowing how to hunt. They must learn hunting techniques from their parents. Example: wolves. A male wolf and a female wolf fuck. They stay together to raise their offspring and train their offspring in the art of hunting. Offspring may learn simply from observing and imitating their parents. Single parenthood, in spite of the fact that both parents are alive, is R-selected behavior. See single mother households. Two-parent households equals K-selected behavior. Single parenthood is incredibly rare among intelligent rich people. It is very common among dumb, poor people. I know literally hundreds of rich parents. I'm not saying this to boast, it is to make a point. I have witnessed exactly 0 of them throw their children out of the house at age 18. That is something that poor people or working classes do. Our selected parenting, typical of dumb poor people are euphemistically called working class in America. Single parenthood. The mother raises the children. The father fucks off and abandons the mother and the children. Chapter 7. Society on Sexual Relations. A society that tells women they are not allowed to learn how to read is overly authoritarian. See Afghanistan. A society that tells women they can engage in casual sexual relationships with multiple men and suffer no negative consequences is overly libertarian. See America. Girls from San Francisco and New York suddenly discovered the obvious truth that promiscuity and being a drunk, lazy, argumentative hoe is not attractive. But lest this lead to honor killings and acid attacks, please think this one through. Premarital sex becomes socially acceptable. Women are not warned that as they accrue more sexual partners, their pair bonding capacity and happiness will diminish. Second wave feminism and third wave told young American women that getting married, having one sexual partner, i.e. pair bonding with your husband, and being supported by your husband's income is oppression. But staying single from age 18 to 35, having multiple men as sexual partners, and losing your capacity to pair bond and spending the overwhelming majority of your waking hours as a corporate employee doing paperwork, is somehow liberation. Women's sexual liberation is a euphemism for give young women the freedom to rack up a high number of sexual partners, lose their capacity to pair bond, and thereby be miserable. From 1990 to 2020, Morocco has had the correct balance. Not too authoritarian or too libertarian. Women are educated, learn how to read and manage finances, and also are not told feel-good delusions like, casual sexual relationships have no consequences, don't worry about it. As a woman accrues more sexual partners, her pair bonding capacity diminishes. The Internet. Oh my God, so profound! This was common knowledge for 99% of human history. Only in modern Western countries is it considered controversial. Prostitution serves a positive purpose for civilization. It ensures that all men, including low-status men, can have at least some sexual access to women. This prevents low-status or sexually unsuccessful men from becoming so frustrated that they become violent, and thereby destabilize civilization. Anecdotally, I have observed that right-wingers tend to be more sexually conservative than left-wingers. Throughout a lifetime, they have fewer sexual partners, and are more likely to wait until after they are married. If sexist means I hate women, then no, I am not sexist. If sexist means I think men and women have psychological differences that are heavily driven by biology, genetics, and evolutionary pressures, then yes, I am sexist. Fuck you. That feeling when your brain is caught between I can do anything a man can do and choke me, daddy. The struggle is real for a girl out here. No, seriously though. Men aren't fucked up like that. A man's sexuality doesn't conflict with his worldview. A woman's does. Monogamy is unnatural, and it is a good thing. A monogamous relationship between a mother and father is better for their children, and on a macro level, monogamous relationships being the norm is good for society, since it leads to less violence. This has been